Okay, good evening. I'd like to welcome you to the January 2nd, 2024 reorganization meeting for the Board of Education for West Windsor-Plainsboro. I'd like to call the meeting to order. In accordance with the state sunshine law, adequate notice of this meeting was provided by sending a notice of the time, date, location, and to the extent known, the agenda of this meeting on January 10th, 2023 and December 22nd, 2023 to the Home News Tribune and the Times, posted on the district website, placed in the board office and in each of the district schools, and sent to Plainsboro and West Windsor public libraries and Plainsboro and West Windsor Township clerks. Again, this is the reorganization meeting of the West Windsor-Plainsboro Regional School District for the period January 2024 through January 2025. In accordance with the state sunshine law, adequate notice of this meeting was provided by sending a notice of the time, date, location, and to the extent known, the agenda of this meeting to the Home News Tribune, the Times, and the West Windsor and Plainsboro Public Libraries. Copies of this notice have also been posted in the board office, filed with Plainsboro and West Windsor Township clerks, and placed in each of our schools and posted on the district website. I will now give you the results of the November 7th, 2023 election. There was one opening for a 3-year term in Plainsboro. Loy Maliga won that election with 2,816 votes. Congratulations, Loy. In West Windsor, there were 2 3-year terms open. Dana Krug won with 4,451 votes, and Shweta Shetty won with 4,341 votes. Congratulations to Dana and Shweta. Now I will ask them to take the oath of office, and we will start with Dana Krug. Dana, would you please raise your right hand and read the oath?
I guess I need the microphone. I, Dana Krug, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and to the governments established in the United States and this state, under the authority of the people. I, Dana Krug, do solemnly swear or affirm that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law for the office of member of a Board of Education, and that I am not disqualified as a voter pursuant to R.S.19:4-1, nor disqualified due to conviction of a crime or offense listed in NJS. 18A:12-1, and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all the duties of that office according to the best of my ability.
And Dana, if you could please sign the oath and send it all down to me, that would be great. And then we'll move to Shweta. Shweta, if you could please raise your right hand and read the oath.
I, Shweta Shetty, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and the governments established in the United States and this state under the authority of the people, so help me God. I, Shweta Shetty, do solemnly swear that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law for the office of member of a Board of Education, and that I am not disqualified as a voter pursuant to RS.19:4-1, nor disqualified due to conviction of a crime or offense listed in NJS 18A:12-1, and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all the duties of that office according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
And if you could just sign the oath and send it down to me, that would be great. Okay, and Loy, if you could please raise your right hand and read the oath.
I, Loy Maliga, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and to the government established in the United States and this state under the authority of the people, so help me God. I, Loy Maliga, do solemnly swear that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law for the office of member of a Board of Education, and that I am not disqualified as a voter pursuant to RS 19:4-1, nor disqualified due to conviction of a crime or offense listed in NJS 18A:12-1, and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all the duties of that office according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Thank you, and if you could please sign the oath and send it down. And congratulations to all of the re-elected board members. Okay, and now we're going to move on to nominations for board president. Do we have any nominations for board president?
I'd like to nominate Graylin McEwen for president.
Okay, we have one nomination for Graylin. Do we have a second?
Hi, Bonnie? Yep. I'd like to also nominate Graylin McEwen for board president, please.
Okay, great. So we have a nomination for Graylin for president. Do we have any other nominations? Okay, hearing no other nominations, I'm now going to do a roll call vote for board president. So Pooja Bansal, can I have your vote for board president?
For Graylin to be his president.
Oh, for Graylin to be, I'm sorry. Yes. And Ms. George Tenera?
Yes.
Ms. Here. Ms. Juliana?
Yes.
And Ms. Krug?
Yes.
And Ms. Maliga?
Yes.
Ms. Shetty?
Yes.
Ms. Ovich?
Yes.
And Ms. McEwen?
Yes.
Okay, great. Congratulations to Ms. McEwen for being elected president, and I am now going to turn the meeting over to Graylin McEwen.
Thank you, Bonnie. Well, first, thanks, Rachel, for your leadership, your mentorship, and your collaboration as our immediate past president. And I'm honored and grateful for the board voting me in and for the honor of representing the board. So thank you. Moving on, now we'll move on to the vote for vice president. Can I get a nomination for vice president?
I nominate Rachel Juliana.
Thank you. Any other, oh wait, is there a second? Thank you. Do we have any other nominations? Okay. And with that, I believe I turn over to Bonnie.
Okay, we'll do a roll call vote for the nomination of Rachel Juliana for vice president. Ms. Bonsall?
Yes.
Ms. George Tenera?
Yes.
Ms. Krug?
Yes.
Ms. McEwen?
Yes.
Ms. Malik?
Yes.
Ms. Shetty?
Yes.
Ms. Ovich?
Yes.
And Ms. Juliana?
Yes.
Okay, congratulations to Rachel Juliana for being elected vice president.
Right, congrats. And as part of our reorganization, there are several items we need to vote on to continue with the regular business of the school district. Can I get a motion for items number 7 through 34? Rachel and Liz, any questions or comments? Okay, Bonnie.
Okay, Ms. Bonsall?
Yes.
Ms. George Tenera?
Yes.
Ms. Krug?
Yes.
Ms. Maliga?
Yes.
Ms. Shetty?
Yes.
Ms. Ovich?
Yes.
Ms. Juliana,
Yes.
and Ms. McEwen.
Yes. That then closes the reorganization portion of our agenda, and we can move on to the regular business items. Dr. Adderhold, do you have any comments?
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to 2024. My best wishes for a healthy and joyous new year to all. Just wanted to recognize members of the Board of Education that January is School Board Recognition Month in the state of New Jersey. We'd like to acknowledge the board members with gratitude for their dedicated service to our West Windsor and Plainsboro communities, for our staff, students, and the support that they give the administration with setting policy and helping to oversee operations to ensure that the district is well run. It's a tireless amount of work that members of the Board of Education do as volunteers to the community, and they do it on behalf of the students, staff, and the community, and they do it willingly and freely of their time away from their family and time away from other activities, but they do it as a passion to the education for our school community, and it's just greatly appreciated. So thank you to all of our board members. There's a resolution on this evening for you to vote on yourselves for your own recognition. And with that, I'll turn it back to the president.
Thank you. And actually, at this time, I will ask our student representative to provide us with a report for High School South.
There you go. Sorry. There you go.
Hello. Thank you. Starting off, we were glad to see participation from various music programs throughout break. Our saxophone quintet performed at the local Quaker Bridge Mall, and throughout the entire last week of school, we saw multiple music performances, whether that be during lunch or through the passing periods from our orchestra, choir, band, and other groups from our student body. In terms of sports, several sports continued strong over break. Specifically, I know our wrestling team and our girls and boys basketball team participated in holiday tournaments. South was very happy to host the boys basketball tournament. And our other sports have been active in practices, with our South swim team taking a trip to Florida and using facilities over there. With clubs and activities, as mentioned in our previous report, our Students Demand Action Club hosted a toy drive, our Interact Club hosted a food drive, and there was an additional holiday drive for the PEI Kids and Acre House programs. We were happy to say that all three drives ran successfully, and we saw great enthusiasm and donations from the student body. Student Council has been very active over the past few weeks. After the last meeting, Student Council hosted a Winter Wonderland event, which we were very happy to see underway because it was our first community event that we have hosted since after COVID. This event gained good attendance, and kids were able to enjoy multiple activities, crafts, snacks, and short films. We very much hope to continue and grow on this event. And furthermore, our student council is also getting back into it by hosting a volleyball tournament for the South student body this weekend, and we hope to see great participation there. And last but not least, on Friday the 22nd, the day before break, South Student Council ran its second winter pep rally since after COVID. We continued with our dueling gym setup with upperclassmen in the new gym and underclassmen in the old gym. This being our second year, we saw a great improvement from our previous year's event, and we were able to incorporate different groups such as our dance crew, step team, cheer team, pep band, and choir into our program of events. And they were all very greatly received by the crowd, which we were very happy to hear. And we really do believe that it was a great send-off into break. And overall, we're just very much looking forward to hosting more events, drives, and overall gathering participation from the student body. But that's pretty much it.
That's awesome. Thanks, Rachel. You guys have been very busy, and it sounds like you will continue to be. So thank you, and have a good night if you're going to scoot out. Next, we are moving on to the Board of Education Annual Ethics Training. So I invite Jeff Kachese, our board attorney, to provide our yearly training. Thank you.
Good evening, and congratulations to Caitlin and Rachel on your presidency and vice presidency. Graylin, I appreciate you pronouncing my name correctly because it can be hard to say my name. So it is now time for the school board ethics review. I know you're all excited for it. I don't think you're ready for this. I'm not sure you can handle this, but we're going to get through it. Just a reminder, this presentation does not replace the individual ethics training required for all newly elected and appointed board members. But we will get into the act itself. So every Board of Education is required to discuss the School Ethics Act and the Code of Ethics for school board members at a regularly scheduled board meeting each year, which is what we're doing here tonight. Adopt policies and procedures for training board members and understand the Code of Ethics, and document that each board member has received and reviewed the Code of Ethics. So you should have a, if you don't have it, we'll get it to you, a document for you to sign after this presentation. All right, this is just a reminder of the Open Public Meetings Act. The legislature finds and declares that the right of the public to be present at all meetings of public bodies and to witness in full detail all phases of the deliberation, policy formulation, and decision-making of public bodies is vital to the enhancement and proper function of the democratic process. That secrecy in public affairs undermines the faith of the public in government and the public's effectiveness in fulfilling its role in a democratic society, and hereby declares it to be the public policy of the state to ensure the right of its citizens to have adequate advance notice of it, and the right to attend all meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting the public is discussed or acted upon in any way, except only in those circumstances where otherwise the public interest would be clearly endangered, or the personal privacy or guaranteed rights of individuals would be clearly in danger of unwarranted invasion. All right, now that we're through that, let's talk about what your role is as Board of Education members and as a board as a whole. Remember, you are, as a board, the governing body of the school district. You, acting as a board, not as individuals, you don't run the world, but you do act on behalf of the school district. You're charged with high-level policy-making decisions. And we're going to go over this in more detail throughout this presentation. You only act as an entity. So only the entity actually takes action. Individuals do not. Decision-making authority is limited. You may not administer the schools. That's a big one that we run into quite often when we're dealing with Ethics Act issues. Obviously, you must not engage in conflicts of interest, and all of these lovely rules you're hearing about today are governed by the Code of Ethics, which is NJSA 18:8:12-24.1. I am not going to read these, each of these to you. I know you've all been through this before, but the School Ethics Act, it's just important to know that your obligation is to hold the respect and confidence of the people. The one part I do want to read to you is you don't want to engage in conduct where it says that the last part of the first paragraph, which creates a justifiable impression among the public that such trust is being violated. So it's not just an actual violation, it's providing a justifiable impression. So it's like that reasonable, I know we have a few attorneys on the board here, it's like that reasonable person standard. So it's a reasonable person, it's not some like alien superstar kind of thing. So the first Ethics Act rule, for lack of a better term, is I will uphold and enforce all laws, rules, and regulations of the State Board of Education and court orders pertaining to schools. Desired changes shall be brought about only through legal and ethical procedures. Real simple. Follow the rules. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. We've gone through some of these in the past, but I will just reiterate to you guys, it's important that you, and if you don't know the answers, please come to us, come to administration, follow the rules of being a board member, follow the rules of 18A, the school district, 6A. So if you don't know what those rules are, just ask. These cases you'll see that we have throughout, the C represents cases, A's are advisory opinions. So the C designation is a case that's been adjudicated, and there's been a decision by the School Ethics Commission. Advisory opinion is just that. It's someone has asked for an opinion of the School Ethics Commission. These two here, C5814 and C1104, since they are a C designation, are cases. Really simple here. A board member violated the code by trying to issue a rice notice to a district employee without following the proper legal procedures of seeking board authority or consulting with the board. It's a good example of someone acting individually, not as a board. Rice notices typically are issued by administration. There is the occasion where the board might have to, for an evaluation, for an example, issue a rice notice to the superintendent. In those situations, the board has to authorize that. It's not an individual act. So just be cognizant of that. And if you have any questions regarding this, what a rice notice is, or anything like that, please feel free to stop and ask. But just for those of you who may or may not know, rice notice is a notice we provide to staff advising them that they may be discussed during a board meeting and executive session. So the staff member is aware and can choose to have that discussion in public to the extent it's appropriate. All right. NJSA 18A:14-24.1b. It says, I will make decisions in terms of the educational welfare of children and will seek to develop and maintain public schools that meet the individual's needs of all children, regardless of their ability, race, creed, sex, and social standing. I have said this before, that probably should be expanded to reflect every designation under the New Jersey law against discrimination. So this probably needs to be updated, but that is not, that's the legislature, and that's their issue, not mine. But I think this is a good way to summarize it. Kids come first. That's what you're here for. That's what the administration's here for. It's for the kids. And that's what you need to consider when making decisions as board members. C1810, just another example of this. Board member violated the code when released an ethics complaint filed against another board member to the media, which contained confidential information regarding the other board member's child. A lot of these codes overlap. So we talk about confidentiality a lot, and that's one of the critical ones. You're, as board members, have to maintain confidentiality, and we'll discuss that. In this situation, they're releasing information related to a student. That has a negative impact on that student. The board member wasn't thinking that the kids come first here, was thinking more about the board as a whole and not the students. In this advisory opinion, there's an A0515. That's, again, an advisory opinion. Conflicted board members could not participate in any matter related to the search, hiring of selection agency, criteria, job description, or vote to advertise relating to the hire of a new superintendent, as their decision-making abilities may not be focused on the educational welfare of children, but rather their relationship with board employees in the district. So that's really for conflicted board members. Like I said, a lot of these overlap when there are conflicts of interest, and we try to tell you in advance, provided there's notice, you have to abstain from certain votes when you have those conflicts. And look, if there's ever any question, that's when we get an advisory opinion. Hey, I don't know whether we can vote on something, and we'll do some research. We'll try to get you an answer, but if we can't, we'll say, hey, let's get an advisory opinion, so we don't put you in that position. NJSA 18A:12-24.1C. I will confine my board action to policymaking, planning, and appraisal, and I will help to frame policies and plans only after the board has consulted those who will be affected by them. So look at the big picture. That's your role here. You're high level, you're policymakers. That's what you do. You don't involve yourself in day-to-day operations. That's for administration. You make the policies. We'll look at C1614. Board members conducted a visit to assess a candidate for assistant superintendent without board authority. Not your role as board members, that's day-to-day operations, right? So you can't go, other than the superintendent, you don't assess, evaluate any staff other than the superintendent. In that particular case, the individual board member was censured. And as a reminder from last time, there are different levels of reprimand. There's reprimand, censure. You can be suspended or removed. Remember, none of you are irreplaceable. NJSA 18A:12-24.1D, no micromanaging. This kind of goes hand in hand with the policy making. I will carry out my responsibility not to administer the schools, but together with my fellow board members to see that they are well run. That's pretty straightforward. Like I said, it goes hand in hand with the policy making component to this. You're not here to administer the school districts. That's, again, administration job. Another advisory opinion, 10-15, board member violated the code by attempting to administer schools by volunteering for a school play and had supervisory authority over students and personnel. This is always a sticky topic, is volunteering, and we have talked about it before, and we'll talk about it a little later, but one of the tests, one of the considerations is your oversight of students and staff, and giving that impression. We talked about justifiable impressions before. Are you giving a justifiable impression that you're directing staff, you're directing students? So you do have a different role as a board member than you do as a parent. You have to be cognizant of that. C4010, board member violated the code by instructing the superintendent to allow a student to participate in graduation ceremonies when the superintendent had barred the student from participating in the ceremonies due to safety concerns. That's an individual board member who cannot act on their own. It's got to be the full board. But two, that's day-to-day operations. That's administration's determination. The board doesn't involve themselves in that. That's micromanaging. It's another couple quick examples. C6406, board member violated the code when they unilaterally visited the school and took pictures of open windows in the middle school and items in the board office bathroom, which he then spoke to reporters about. I mean, that's pretty straightforward. Advisory opinion 1510. The board member would violate the act by participating in an exit interview or merely observing the exit interview, as it would breach the board's members' obligation to refrain from becoming directly involved in activities that are responsibility of school personnel and would equate to micromanaging school personnel. I will mention this, and we'll get into this a little bit later. We do not promote this. We don't suggest this. There is some decisions, some opinions about board members sitting in on interviews for potential staff members. The Ethics Commission frowns upon it, but does allow it. You can't ask questions. You really can't do anything other than be there. And at the end of the day, you have to listen to the recommendation of the superintendent. You don't get to make that recommendation, which is why we really say don't do it, because all you can do is get you in trouble. But I mention that because the Ethics Commission allows you to do that, but not sit on an exit interview. So you should just be cognizant of that dynamic. 18A:12-24.1E, I will recognize that the authority rests with the Board of Education and will make no personal promises or take any private action that may compromise the board. I appreciate, you understand that you function as a full board, and this is, I think, one of the only all-female boards. It's not the only all-female board in the state. But just remember, you don't act as independent women. act as a full board. C-1614, board members violated the code when they made personal promises to a candidate for assistant superintendent by advancing the possibility of his employment with the district and promising to resolve a contract issue for the district which had the potential to compromise the board. I mean, obviously, you can't make those promises. One, you're acting individually, not you, this board member. But the board can't make those promises anyway. That actually led to a censure of that individual. Advisory opinion 44-14, a board member who was employed as an aide in a private daycare center must recuse from any involvement related to the contract between the board and the daycare center so as to ensure no action that may compromise the board. That's one of those conflict issues that we talked about when you have a conflict issue. We always err on the side of abstaining or suggesting that you abstain, but please ask us. 18A:12-24.1F. I will refuse to surrender my independent judgment to special interest or partisan political groups or to use the schools for personal gain or for the gain of friends. So you basically, you want to be able to say, like, you can't take gifts from people other than nominal value. But you want to be able to say, like, the watch I wear, I bought it. The car I drive, I bought it. The house I own, I bought it. Like, you don't want to take gifts from others. Obviously, that's a major violation. C-3614, a board member may endorse candidates for election to the board if the endorsement is made as a private citizen and not as a board member or on behalf of the board. This comes up a lot during election season. Just know that we'd be very cognizant. Don't reflect that you're a board member on any documentation, anything that might go out there, any phone calls. You have to make sure you're telling folks you're acting as a private citizen. 82914, board member who owned, operated a business could not continue in connection with educational foundation to offer a fundraiser charging students and splitting profits between the business and foundation, as it could be perceived as using position for personal gain. Again, that's an advisory opinion, but it's something you should be aware of. Another one we don't have in there is C-3418. I've talked about this one before in the past. This was a case where a board member was stopped by the police and used some pretty vulgar terms towards the police officer. That in and of itself actually didn't get the board member in trouble. It was saying that they will go to the council president, make a call to the council president. That was perceived and was a violation of the act. Ended up being a 6-month suspension. I mean, it's essentially that person saying to the officer, you may not know about me. This is who I am. I'm going to make a call. So that person got a 6-month suspension. I don't think the vulgarities helped either, but A1314, board member may continue as a freelance journalist, however, must not report on board issues and must ensure that no information that was discussed solely in executive session is disclosed. I mean, obviously you can do your job. You're going to be privy to confidential information. You can't take that confidential information and obviously gain from it. That's a big no-no. C-4407, board member violated the code by publicly posting confidential information if the staff member was removed from the school and hospitalized for a medical condition. All right. 18A:12-24.1G, this is a big one. I will hold confidential all matters pertaining to the schools, which, if disclosed, would needlessly injure individuals or the schools. In all other matters, I will provide accurate information and, in concert with my fellow board members, interpret to the staff my aspirations of the community for its school. So, essentially what you're saying is that the information you gain, and you're going to gain information in executive session that's confidential. Could be student matters, could be personnel matters, could be a number of different matters. That stays between me, myself, and I. So sorry, you can't tell anyone else. Got to stay within those walls. A:2414, conflicted board members may not participate in the board search for a new superintendent as confidential matters. Pertaining to search might be disclosed to board members. I mean, again, it's all pretty straightforward stuff. I will vote, 18A, colon 12-24.1H. I will vote to appoint the best qualified personnel available for consideration of the recommendation of the Chief Administrative Officer. So sorry, I'm jumping around here. So that's basically, listen to your superintendent's recommendation. Pretty straightforward stuff. There's a number of different areas where it's only the superintendent's recommendation. That's going to come down to, hiring and firing are the big ones. When you're dealing with termination of employment contracts, when you're dealing with hiring of personnel, there are other matters. But, when you're dealing with, for example, hiring, we talked a little bit about the interview process. We frown upon, and the Ethics Commission frowns upon, board members sitting in on interviews. It's really the administration's job to and look, they're the experts. They're the ones who are the educators. They know who they're interviewing. They know what to look for, more so than board members. So at the end of the day, it's the last candidate standing or the survivor of the interview process is determined by the superintendent, not the board. The board would take the recommendation at that point. AO4-12, a board member may participate, and this is what I talked about earlier, participate in interview committee for candidates for high-level administrative and supervisory positions. However, board members' participation must be limited to offering observations and assessments. And the final recommendations are within the purview of the superintendent. That's what I said earlier. You kind of just have to sit there. Sometimes it's hard to sit there, and you may start asking questions. And if you ask questions, now you're subjected to the Ethics Act, and there may be violations. Again, that's why we frown upon it, excuse me. So you really should be very cognizant of that. Oh, I'm sorry. This went too far. All right, no lone wolves. This case is simply about that. Like, I know you've heard it before. I'm not going to bore you with it again. You're acting as a board. You're not acting as an individual. In this case, a board member filed a petition with the Commissioner of Education related to the superintendent's contract. The individual board member, not the board. That's a violation. So just think of it this way. When you are thinking about acting individually, look to your left, to your right. Those people get votes too. They have voices as well. So make sure you know that if you have those inclinations, you have the other board members that have their say as well. 18A:12-24.1I. I will support and protect school personnel in proper performance of their duties. I did not pick that Bartleson James, but I do like it. C-4907, a board member violated the code by sending a letter to the superintendent, copying the State Board of Ed, executive county superintendent, accusing the superintendent of allowing employees to violate board policy. Not that I'm suggesting people should do this, but parents can do that. But as board members, you're under a different set of rules. You can't do that. That's a violation of the Ethics Act. You are treated differently as board members. You're held to a higher standard. C-5305, board member violated the code by sending an email to the superintendent that was also sent to the BA and all the other board members asking the superintendent to provide an accounting of her personnel leave. While the board can ask for the accounting, individual board members cannot. That's the distinction there. C-2511, the board president violated the code by posting a picture of the superintendent on Facebook with the comment, "Now, if we could only do something about our local terrorists that destroy dreams and burn futures." That was a bad one, obviously. But that is not obviously an individual. it's weighing that First Amendment right versus your rights as board members and what your obligation on. There's a lot of cases, and I will be very honest with you, they're pretty inconsistent at this point about your First Amendment speech, because you'll see, we tell board members all the time, social media, I mean, whether it's you as board members, whether it's students, whether it's staff, it is one of the things that we see the most problems with. Most problems arise from people using social media as a platform for whatever. You do have First Amendment rights. You don't lose your First Amendment rights. But you're then a board member. In this instance, this person, the superintendent's an employee of the board. That's not supporting the employee. So your First Amendment rights do get limited in some ways as a board member. (18A12) 24.1J, use proper channels. I will refer all complaints to the Chief Administrative Officer and will act on the complaints at public meetings only after failure of an administrative solution. I do have this occur once in a while where I will have board members, there'll be an issue maybe with the principal, and they say that a parent will come to you and say, hey, this principal is doing X, Y, and Z, so you'll go directly to the principal. Well, that's a violation. While as a parent you could do that, as a board member you cannot. You need to go to the superintendent. If there are any parent complaints, student complaints, any complaints that you receive, the first course of action is to go to the superintendent. That's what your obligation is as board members. C-2505, board member violated the code by going to the principal directly, just as I talked about in connection with a parent complaint, rather than referring the complaint to the superintendent. C-2407, board member violated the code by not providing superintendent with letters because he did not like the superintendent's management. Instead, the board member went to the administrators, other administrators to address the issue. Doesn't matter whether you get along with the superintendent or not, you still have to go directly to the superintendent. All right, conflicts of interest. And we talked, I mean, this is, there's a lot of conflicts of interest, especially related to negotiations. You'll see a lot of it. And if we haven't done it already, I'm sure we have for you guys since we don't have any new board members. Ask what your conflicts are so we know. A says no school official or member of his immediate family shall have an interest in business organizations or engage in any business transaction or professional activity which is a substantial conflict with the proper discharge of their duties in the public interest. You guys being school officials at this point. No school official shall use or attempt to use his official position to secure unwarranted privileges, advantages, or employment for himself, members of his immediate family, or others. So when we talk about negotiations, you may have a relative, and then there's different, you may have a spouse, you may have a relative. They're defined differently, whether it's immediate family or relative, under the Act and under the nepotism rules. But depending on what, and if you have these conflicts, please ask us, because it gets a little complicated as to what you can do in terms of negotiations and what conflicts there are. For example, if you have a spouse within the school district, you're not going to be able to be involved in anything negotiations-wise at all. Now, then we talk about cousins. That's a little different. That may be, if it's a cousin outside of the school district, in the school district, depends on the definition. But you also have to look at what we talked about earlier, how the public would perceive it. So you may say, look, I'm a single lady, he hasn't put a ring on it. I'm not married to this person. I should be able to be involved in negotiations. Well, the word others is in there. So that could be a situation where you don't have good professional judgment. You can't, and you may get an advantage. It depends. That's why we have to really kind of explore that. So I would just encourage you to go to go through, this is the conflict of interest rules, but a lot of it, I would just suggest that you ask us, ask administration. I'm not going to read all this to you. It's pretty straightforward. I mean, you guys know, if you have business dealings with, or you're employed by certain employers that do business with the district, you're probably going to have conflict. You're not going to be able to vote on certain items related to those entities. But if you have questions, please let us know. So these are some of the non-conflicts. No school official shall be deemed in conflict with these provisions if, by reason of his participation in any matter required to be voted upon, no material monetary gain accrues to him as a member of any business, profession, occupation, or group. By the way, I didn't put him in here all the way. For those of you who know, when we have negotiations, I always change it to gender neutral. Or group to any greater extent than any gain could reasonably be expected to accrue to any other member of that business, profession, occupation, or group. Again, not going to bore you with all of this, but these are situations that wouldn't be considered conflicts. It's pretty obvious. I mean, if you have any connection with the school district, whether through business, family, friends, that may impair your judgment or have the perception of impairing your judgment, you should disclose it, and we can tell you whether you have a conflict. We talked about this, relatives in the district, whether it's immediate family or just a relative, there's specific definitions related to it. There is a distinction between being in the local negotiation unit, so being, if a spouse or a relative was a member of the local negotiation unit, so the association here in this district, or if they're in another district. If in another district, then we have to do a different analysis as to whether a conflict exists. Advisory opinion A30-14. This is related to substitutes. Advise that, these are just some for your general knowledge and to give you some context. Advise that where a board member's spouse is employed as a substitute teacher in a district, the board member may not participate in any personnel matters of those in the chain of command over a board member's spouse. So that's another analysis we have to do if there's a relative within the district, we have to go through the chain of command to determine whether you can vote on items. So every year we may renew that person, whether it's pro forma or not. When we renew them, you have to abstain from that vote. We do get a lot of questions related to volunteering. There's a number of advisory opinions that really come down to the degree of involvement with staff and students. They actually have a kind of I don't want to say a checklist, but a number of different points to look at to determine whether you are violating the act. But my suggestion is always, if you're volunteering in a way where you're going to interact with staff or students, let us know, and we can do that analysis, and if we have to, we can get an advisory opinion. But we have done this here in the past for that purpose. So these are just some more cases related to volunteering. I'm sorry, more advisory opinions about the degree of involvement that you should feel free to look at. If you have questions, please ask. The doctrine of necessity, not usually employed, but it is important when you have conflict of interest, something we need to typically do in advance because we have to publish a resolution. But essentially what the doctrine of necessity is when you have so many conflicts on the board that you can't vote for a particular item. So if it's a vote where you need a full majority of the board, or maybe you have conflicts that you don't have a full majority or don't have a quorum, you may have to invoke the doctrine of necessity. You have to give the reasons for the conflicts and why the members can't vote. And then in that limited circumstance, you will be able to vote. This is always something that we try to do in advance because it does have to be published in advance. So doesn't usually occur, it does sometimes, but if it does, if you have conflicts, that's why it's important to let us know as soon as possible so we can address it. All right, well, we're almost through it. If you don't have it, we'll get it to you. Acknowledgement, receive the code of ethics for school board members. You do have it. You'll sign that to say you got it, you received it, you got trained. Then, after that, your training is complete. You all get your halos for having to sit through this. If there are any questions, just throw your hands up at me. About the presentation, about questions about the presentation. You can tell me what you think about me. Any questions? Well, thank you.
Anybody? Thank you, Mr. Kachese. Okay, now we can move on to the first opportunity. Yes, for the first opportunity for public comments. The board invites thoughts and reactions on agenda items and items of concern from members of our community who are present. Each participant is asked to give his or her name and address prior to making a statement, which will be limited to 3 minutes in accordance with Board Policy 0167. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. This public comment period shall be limited to 60 minutes. Do we have any public comments tonight? Seeing none, I'll close the public comments portion. And we don't have any committee reports since we are starting a fresh year, so we can move on to the voting portion of our meeting. Can I have a motion to approve administration items 1 through 4? Dana, Robin, any questions or comments?
Okay. Ms. Bonsall?
Yes.
Ms. George Genera?
Yes.
Ms. Krug?
Yes.
Ms. Maliga?
Yes.
Ms. Shetty?
Yes.
Ms. Zovich?
Yes.
Ms. Juliana?
Yes.
And Ms. McEwen?
Yes. We don't have any items for curriculum and instruction, so can I get a motion to approve finance items number 1 through 15 with a correction on number 4, solar renewable energy certificates, to correct the date from January 17th to February 14th, 2024. And we also have the blue addendum. Shweta and Pooja? Any questions or comments?
Okay. And Ms. Bonsall?
Yes.
Ms. George Genera?
Yes.
Ms. Krug?
Yes.
Ms. Maliga?
Yes.
Ms. Shetty?
Yes.
Ms. Zovich?
Yes.
Ms. Juliana?
Yes.
And Ms. McEwen?
Yes. We'll move on to personnel. So can I have a motion for personnel items number 1 and the green addendum? Liz and Loy, any questions or comments?
Okay. And we'll start with Ms. Krug.
Yes.
Ms. Maliga?
Yes.
Ms. Zovich?
Yes.
Ms. Bonsall?
Yes.
Ms. George Genera?
Yes.
Ms. Juliana?
Yes.
Ms. McEwen?
Yes.
And did I miss? I think I missed somebody. Did I miss anybody? Ms. Shetty, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Yes.
Great. Thank you. Before we move on, I did want to acknowledge one of our personnel items that we just approved tonight. It is the retirement of Robert Hartley, Village Elementary School teacher who is retiring from the district after 25 years. Mr. Hartley, thank you for your years of service and dedication to our district. Congratulations and best wishes on your retirement. No, we don't have any Board of Education minutes to approve, so do we have any board liaison reports? Any new business? Okay, that takes us to the second opportunity for public comments. The board invites comments from members of our community who are present. Each participant is asked to give his or her name and address prior to making a statement, which will be limited to 3 minutes in accordance with Board Policy 0167. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. This public comment period shall be limited to 15 minutes. Do we have any comments?
Debbie Bear, teacher in West Windsor-Plainsboro. I just figured somebody should say something like, Happy New Year, welcome back, congratulations. It's a lovely all-women board again. I'm not sure. We appreciate working with you, and of course, we anticipate 2024 being no different than all the other years we've all worked together. So congratulations, everybody, and Happy New Year.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Okay, hearing none, I'll close the second opportunity for public comment. And we will recess into closed executive session, so I will read this statement. Whereas the Open Public Meetings Act authorizes boards of education to meet in executive session under certain circumstances, whereas the Open Public Meetings Act requires the board to adopt a resolution at a public meeting to go into private session, now therefore be it resolved by the West Windsor-Plainsboro Regional School District Board of Education that it is necessary to meet in executive session to discuss certain items involving discussion of district property acquisition and potential litigation regarding CMS referendum project. Be it further resolved that any discussion held by the board which need not remain confidential will be made public as soon as feasible. The minutes of the executive session will not be disclosed until the need for confidentiality no longer exists. Be it further resolved that the board will not return to open session to conduct business at the conclusion of the executive session if necessary. Can I have a motion to adjourn the closed session? Oh.
I didn't get a reason for closed session.
Oh, I did read. Do you want me to say it again?
The number?
Oh, number 5, discussion of district property acquisition, and number 7, potential litigation regarding the CMS referendum project. No, it's all good. Thank you. A motion to adjourn closed session. Dana and Lori. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you.